holidays and New Year often come with mixed emotions. On the surface, we talk about rest, joy, and fresh starts. But underneath, many people feel pressure, comparison, unresolved habits, and the same patterns repeating year after year. Listeners, today's conversation is about understanding why that happens and what really drives our choices when we say we want to change, but then why doesn't it happen? Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always. And today we are looking beneath motivation and willpower into something deeper, more profound. The relationship between the conscious mind, our desires, and the subconscious programming that quietly runs the show. And listeners, joining me is Anna, a certified hypnotherapist and former cosmetic medicine professional with over 23 years of experience working closely with patients and the mind body connection. She trained at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute and she brings a grounded, compassionate approach to subconscious healing. Listeners, let me tell you that Anna works with anxiety, confidence, relationships, lasting self directed change. Her work bridges science, consciousness, and real life transformation. So, Anna, welcome to the Mindful Living, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Sana. It is my absolute honor to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you.
And I'm really glad you because you're bringing this topic here which shows up strongly during the holidays. I mean, um, I have been very very badly struggling, because sometimes my inner self it badly wants myself to change, but somehow it doesn't work in the expected way. Like people want to change but they feel stuck. So I'm really thankful that you brought up this topic for all of us.
Thank you so much. So, I like to, Sana, break things down. I'm going to try to make this as simplified as possible. So, if we can think of the mind, if you can picture in your mind, let's say a circle, okay? And then as a circle, pretend that that is our brain. And every single human being, the only thing that we are born with is what we call the primitive mind. And the primitive mind is what holds our fight, flight, freeze reflex. So everybody's heard of the fight, flight, which essentially is the human reflex and desire to survive. It's our survival mechanism. Everything else from about 0 to 8, we start learning. We start programming that mind. We start usually, if our primary caregiver is our mother or whoever else is our primary caregiver, they start implanting that mind. And from about 0 until 8 years old, we don't have a prefrontal cortex. We don't have the ability to logic, to reason. So this is why we often hear that our, children are like sponges. We simply absorb and we simply take it in. And so, after about 8, 9 years old, we start developing more of a filter between what we want, our logic, all of those things start developing, and what our subconscious programming is. And so, after about 8, 9 years old, that conscious mind starts coming on board. The conscious mind is what holds, our desires. Our willpower to change, our logic, our reasoning, all of those things are in the conscious mind. Here's the kicker, Sana. The subconscious mind is a whopping 88 approximately percent of our brain power, and the conscious mind, which holds all of that logic, reasoning, decision making, willpower, is only about 12%.
Wow.
And so exactly. And so when you think of the whole and when you think of, for instance, you want to you want to stop picking somebody who's, yelling and screaming, but you grew up in a house which was chaotic and you grew up in a house which was, constantly your parents were screaming, there was chaos. And so even though you logically know that that is not how you want to live, you know that that's not what you want, but that's only 12%. What your mind views as a subconscious safe known association is the chaos. And so you keep thinking that you're self-sabotaging. You keep thinking something is wrong with you because you're picking people that are chaotic. But essentially, your brain is simply doing what it is designed to do. It is simply trying to keep you within the known associations to keep you safe. Because remember, the brain's only sole job is to keep you safe. It's not to make you happy or to give you everything you've ever dreamed of. That is already a human, logical construct. That is already something we do by design. But,
Mm.
well, not so much by design, but that is something a human being does because we've already evolved to have these desires, these, logic, reasoning, and all of these things. But subconsciously, things will still continue to run the show unless you do something specifically with that subconscious programming, unless we go into that subconscious mind and work with that programming that wants to keep you safe and let it know that there's other options to keep you safe. Because logically, like you were saying, logically, you want to do something, but logically, I can't just tell you, stop acting X, Y, and Z, or, go to the gym more, or stop eating chocolate all day. Those things are something that logically we may know, but subconsciously, we are, for whatever reason, whatever the known association became, whatever our subconscious mind paired with quote unquote, perceived safety,
Mhm.
that's what it's gonna continue to do.
Mm. It absolutely makes sense, and it's important because this explains, why people feel frustrated with themselves. I mean, if I were to be more precise, it really gives that feeling of, sometimes shame and judgment that, I'm completely I'm not capable enough to change myself. I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the part, the shame and the guilt is what often keeps my clients stuck more often than anything else because, you start kind of playing this game with yourself. You start shaming yourself. You start telling yourself things that are really not true. It's your brain is doing what it is designed to do. It is designed to keep you safe, and safety just means doing the same thing over and over because remember, there's a thing in our that is called homeostasis. And homeostasis, basically, if you could think of homeostasis, think of it as balance. And think of balance as not good or bad, it simply is. And so because your brain's job is to keep everything in balance, think of it like this. You have a cold, your body heals itself, comes back to balance. You get angry, it heals itself, comes back to balance. You even happiness, you get excited, comes back to balance. Equilibrium and that homeostasis is what the brain does. And so it's not that something is wrong with you or you're doing something wrong or this is exactly what the brain is designed to do. So if you take out the frustration and you take out the guilt and the shame and all of these things and just say, wait a minute, let me work with the formula instead of trying to rewrite something that has already been designed for a specific reason through evolution, you know?
a quick pause for you listening listeners. If this conversation is already giving you language for what you feel inside, or if you feel it's helping you see your patterns with a little less shame, hit follow on the Mindful Living. And if someone in your life keeps saying, I am stuck, or I do not know what is wrong with me, share this episode with them after you are done. All right, back to it. Exactly, exactly. And if someone recognizes this gap between desire and behavior, and what is the first practical step to becoming aware of subconscious influence rather than fighting it? Because why I think this question is important, because as you mentioned that, it can be really hard to accept that, oh my goodness, 88% is my subconscious and just 12% is conscious. And we kind of categorize people. Okay, this person is not disciplined, this person is short tempered, this person is not a good character. We try to categorize everyone without even understanding what could be the reasons behind them. So that's why I think this question is very, very important. Like, what is the first practical step to becoming aware of subconscious influence?
I think that brings me back to the word compassion because we when we make judgments on other people and we think they're incapable or they're short-tempered or whatever, we can make a very quick snap judgment and that makes us human. However, what makes us a little bit more evolved than just every single human, because ultimately we are trying to evolve, right? That is our ultimate goal. So if we're trying to look at this in a more evolved manner, we have to look at it through the eyes of compassion and understand that what we really don't know, not to oversimplify it, but we have no idea what drives somebody's motivation, not even our own sometimes. And so when you ask about what is it that we can do as a first step, human behavior always operates, you can look at it as a three-step process. It operates on a like a reward and a like a going away from, if I can't think of the word right now, but like anything that has a possibility of a reward, we naturally gravitate towards. Anything that we think is going to be an unknown, it's going to be anything that is, that not a known association, we go away from because the subconscious mind doesn't want that, even if it could be good for us. So when you ask what is the first step, I would say how, pause. Really just take a moment and pause because between that doing something, making a snap judgment and decide or whether deciding to do it or not do it, there's always that split second. And if you can catch yourself within that split second of a let me just take a pause and breathe and then ask yourself whatever questions that are there to ask, what is my motivation? Am I doing this because I'm actually consciously making a choice? Or am I doing this out of subconscious behavior? And also I would like to add that subconscious behavior is a beautiful thing because if we didn't act mostly out of the subconscious mind, every day we would have to relearn to tie our shoes, relearn how to walk, and these are all the human everything we do is in that subconscious mind. It's just that if you look at it like, a big soup in the kitchen, you don't want to get rid of everything. But if you're changing the recipe, you have to know exactly which spice to take out. So we don't want to get rid of the whole thing. We don't want to say that the subconscious mind is intimidating and it's this whole big 88%. We just want to say, okay, understand it. Understand that if you take a split second, let's say there's a specific behavior. And as a hypnotherapist, I work with behavior. We work symptomatically. So let's say there's a behavior, you want to stop biting your fingernails. It's this behavior that you have to, it's having this. I work with the way that I would work is I would install different stop mechanisms. So your brain immediately has that ability to have that pause button, that, see a stop sign, give you that desire, that moment to pause so that you're acting consciously rather than subconsciously. Because the minute you pause, it gives you space to then, infinite space to do whatever you're going to do.
Mm, exactly, exactly. My father used to tell me, look before you leap. And then um, I came across another proverb like stitch in time, yeah, stitch in time, nick in time. I may be wrong, but these two proverbs are always conflicting. Like, before doing something, think twice. But then do not think as long as, that entire action is like it doesn't have any relevance. Where
Well, yeah, there's a difference between have a moment and think about something or start ruminating. Rumination is different than having a thought.
Yeah, yeah. And another, I think it's kind of a contradictory angle which I want to add. Do you think that is subconscious work? Does it have a potential to become an excuse? Like, some people would hear about this subconscious programming and start saying, okay, this is how I'm wired, or my past controls me. Like, is there a risk that subconscious works becomes an excuse to avoid responsibility?
100% no. And the reason that I say that so sure is because, if like when I started explaining, if you remember, I said everything we start as a human being as a blank slate. The only thing we have is a primitive mind. Everything else, the subconscious is a learned behavior. Anything learned can be unlearned.
Hmm.
Anything learned can be unlearned. The question is, Do you unlearn? You can't just tell somebody, stop biting your nails. I'm using that as an example again. Stop biting your nails. I
Mhm.
can't just say that. I have to install something else because the brain doesn't work in negatives. So I can't,
Mhm.
if I tell you don't think of a blue elephant, the first thing on your mind is a blue elephant.
Yeah.
But if I tell you, don't think of a blue elephant, think of a beautiful cloud instead drifting by. Now
Mhm.
you're thinking of the cloud,
Beautiful.
and so this is about retraining the neural synapses. This is about, those neural pathways in the brain. Once they fire together, they're going to wire together. That's what we say, and so for every person, it's a matter of how many times do you repeat a behavior before it becomes a habit. And just because you learned something and it became a habit doesn't mean it can't
Mhm.
be unlearned and a new habit can't be put into place. The question is, do you put in a new habit, or do you just continue to beat yourself up that this is just the way I am? A lot of people like to actually use that, Sana, as an excuse. It's the way I've always been. But, debate the way you've always been is simply the way you've always been. It doesn't mean that it's the way you have to be. And again, it doesn't mean I'm oversimplifying it. It doesn't mean it's you snap your fingers and it's done. It does require a little work, but you wouldn't run on a broken leg until you put the cast on and fix it. So if there's something within the mind and within the brain and programming that you need to fix, it is very possible to fix it, set the bone, and then heal and move on.
Very well said. I really love your examples, Anna. Yeah. Um, I think you were the best person here to answer this, like because you have been exploring the mind body connection here. I want to bring in the nervous system. What role does it, you know, play in this whole, in this circle? Where does exactly it fall in that circle of, conscious or subconscious?
I think the nervous system is also there. Again, the whole body, the organism, it's there to protect you. So if the nervous system is on alert, is on high alarm, it's because it's sending a message. It's not to be ignored. It's not to be, we're so quick to take an aspirin instead of finding out what is the pain from, right? And it's the same thing as in your house. You have a smoke detector, and the smoke detector starts going off, and you're just like, oh, take it out, but it's bothering me. It's a similar thing that's there for a reason. Is there to alert you something in the body needs attention. Your nervous system, if it's acting up, it's probably because it's sensing some kind of disorder. It doesn't mean that it is wrong. It's just sensing something that it's either not identifying as something negative, and so it's associating it with something scary, and so your body starts reacting. Because remember, emotionally, your body there's a book, it's called Your Body Keeps the Score. It's an excellent book.
Yeah.
But your body can only let you know through feeling. And so the nervous system will make your body act out and feel what you're emotionally is trying to tell you. So it's the organism is there for a reason. I don't think we should ignore it. I think we should always pay attention when the nervous system tries to speak, because it's likely connected to something emotional, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that exactly what defines mindfulness, I believe, Anna. Like what do you have to say about it?
Mindfulness, I think you're right. It's really just doing things, it's taking a pause and doing things through the conscious rather than through the subconscious. And it's not going to be always, because we're not designed to do that. It would be exhausting to constantly try to do everything consciously. But, evolution brought us to a place where subconscious because really it's the brain looks for a path of least resistance. And the
Mm.
path of least resistance is not having to relearn how to tie your shoes every day. And so the brain puts that into a cabinet of, okay, it's done. So if we had to continually relearn, redo, reinvent the wheel, it would be, a whole other thing to the human being. So I think this is about just really working with it and really just learning how it works and allowing for it to do what it does, taking a
Mhm.
pause, being conscious and doing things consciously can't be done 24/7, but we can strive to do it, at the important points, at the things that matter. And actually, Sana, they say now that what comes to mind is actually that in itself, just being sometimes even the practice of becoming aware and conscious, even of something as easy and as simple as brushing your teeth or putting on butter on your morning toast, you know, even something simple that brings us back into our bodies, into doing things consciously. And sometimes I will tell my clients if they are doing things really, because sometimes people are hypnotized and I have to dehypnotize them before I even can install new programs. And so a lot of times it is becoming conscious and of the small things, of the everyday things. It's a practice, teaching your brain how to be conscious on the small things then gives you the ability to be more conscious on the things that really matter.
Absolutely. No doubt. No doubt. Let's talk about desire, Anna. Like sometimes people want something consciously, like confidence or healthy relationships, a peaceful life, but there's an emotional payoff in staying where they are. So what role does emotional payoff play in subconscious programming?
Emotional payoff is like that secondary gain is huge because I think that a lot of times people don't even aren't even aware of the secondary gain. And so a lot of times, for instance, people may be holding on to weight because they've been sexually abused, so they don't want people to look at them, something as a just a loose example, but a lot of times the clients aren't even really aware that there is some kind of secondary gain because the brain is just there to keep you safe. And so when you're doing things, even as my very first example of the chaotic relationship, it is
Mhm.
only trying to keep you safe because it's doing what it knows. And so, keeps repeating that pattern over and over and over in the efforts to continue doing what it knows.
Hmm. And I think that explains why change can feel like loss, not gain. Like, people are not just changing habits, they're changing who they believe they are. And it's like a huge challenge to your identity.
It is, but it's really if you want, if you think about, I don't know if I've seen online, they have these beautiful examples of the neural pathways in your brain, how they connect and how behaviors, how they rewire, when you change a behavior. So really it's that, it's really just understanding that it's just a habit, a behavior is just those neural pathways in such that connected in a particular way. And when you give it a different way to reconnect, initially it's going to feel weird and strange and foreign and like you're doing something wrong because you to the system, not in reality, but to your system, you are. Those neural pathways need to readjust and reconnect to something else. And until they do, it feels off. So it is gonna initially feel like really hard work, like, "This is not normal, this doesn't feel right, this is so" questioning the logic, the self-sabotage, all of those things, but neuroplasticity, once it happens, then it becomes a new norm, then it becomes the new known association, and then those neural pathways are reconnected to a different behavior.
Hmm. And is age a factor here, Anna? Like people would think, okay, I'm in my mid 30s or 40s or 50s, so I've always seen like half of the life, and there's no way that I can bring any change within me.
I'll tell you, that I think that is a really outdated way of thinking. And it does hold a little bit of truth when you think of the more ingrained a pattern is. Sometimes it could be a little bit more work to try to give it a different pathway. However, it doesn't mean that if you do it, this is why people go to hypnotherapy. This is why people do certain things. And you can't just tell yourself, I have to stop X, Y, and Z. Because, yes, the longer you've been doing it, the more neural pathways have ingrained, and the more that now has become, more like a stamp. You think of it as Velcro or a stamp, and
Mhm.
the minute that you do it the right way, you do it through introducing a new behavior. You do it through different known associations. You do it through all these different NLPs, tapping, EFT, all these different techniques that we have. When you do it in a correct way, then no, I don't think that age is a factor because I've had clients who are in their 70s who have made tremendous, huge progress. And then I've had clients who are in college age and they're not making as much progress because It depends on how much we're in our way. It depends on how willing and ready we are for that change because, hypnotherapy is one of these things where nobody can do something against or to you. It's a do with process, not a do to. So clients
Mm.
have to be ready, and it doesn't matter. Some people get ready at 70 and some at 25.
Hmm. That is interesting. That is a really, really interesting insight. And I mean, and this has been a master class here because this topic, the entire discussion conversation can be so uh, complicated or nuanced, or sometimes people can have so many misconceptions. I think people, whenever they would hear, oh my god, hypnotherapy, hypnotism, okay, that is no, that is woo woo.
They get very scared. They think
Yeah.
they're gonna be barking like a dog and quacking like a duck and, losing control, telling their secrets, and this is really the last thing of close to the truth because, hypnotherapy is only to gain control of that subconscious mind, the triggers, the programming. Nobody has ever lost control. Nobody has ever done anything that they don't wanna do or against their will or, if you get people can open their eyes and go about their day. And as a matter of fact, what I was saying before, most people half the time, the first job is to dehypnotize before I can
Yeah.
hypnotize. So, because we don't even realize that we're walking around in hypnosis half the time throughout the day. It's a natural process for the brain. You're watching a movie and you get so caught up in it that you start crying. It's not because you know it's real, it's because your brain feels the emotion because the brain is in hypnosis. It's viewing the show. If you're driving or you miss an exit because you're so deep in thought, that's hypnosis. You're essentially in a very, very focused mind and a very relaxed body. And that's when we can speak to that subconscious known association.
Exactly. Exactly. Super, super. And Anna, if listeners they would like to connect with you, explore, I'm very sure they'll be so much eager how they can connect with you.
I would love to hear from anybody. My social, my Instagram is annamachkalov.hypnosis. It's AnnaMachkalov dot hypnosis, hypnosis. Or my website, it's um, annamachhypnosis.com. So
Hypnosis.
that's, yes, so you can either my website or my Instagram or just by my name, you'll be able to find me.
Absolutely. And listeners, to make that easier, I'll make sure to have all the links, Anna's website and all her social media links so that you can easily reach out to her, explore more about her work, and seek more wisdom around this. Um, because what I am taking away from this conversation here is um that we need to take a moment to reflect instead of pushing ourselves harder, because awareness, it is not a weakness, it is the starting point of real change. And Anna, thank you so much once again. This has been a masterclass. I really loved, really enjoyed. It has been such a learning conversation for me, so thank you.
It is my honor, Sana. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking again.
Super. And to all the listeners out here, thank you for spending this time with us. And if you found value in this episode, share it with someone who might be feeling stuck as the new year begins. Until next time, this is the Mindful Living. I'm Sana, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you.